In the HP15C User's Handbook, Section 6 goes over the programming basics of the calculator. So I'm going to go to the very first example of how long it takes for an object to fall from a given height. So with this program, we can walk through programming it into the calculator. And they actually mention that this type of programming is keystroke programming. Well, that was probably really cool in the 80s when you could simply punch in all the keys and it would record them into the program memory, and then the calculator would literally just step through the key presses essentially. So this particular program is pretty short and sweet. They don't even put a return at the end, and as you should know per the manual, that when the program reaches the return, or when it reaches the end, there's a couple of options. The return will end and return it back to line 0, but if it's the last program in program memories, it'll automatically go back to the beginning. So let's go into programming mode, and I will do the key strokes here. So G, PR, and then F, label A, 2 times 9.8 divide, and then the square root of all of that. And I'm going to put my return in there, and then we'll get out of programming mode. I will say that I started from a fresh calculator, so it was in a fresh state when I loaded it. Okay, now let's go down to the example. Just enter 300.51, and then we'll run program A. So 300.51 FA. That gives us 7.8313. And we see that's a little off here, so let's change our fixed decimal places to 4. And there we go, 7.8313. So now, let's go into the program editor. Program line 0 does not contain any commands or any bytes of program information. So let me bring the manual back up. Now, some of the keys are a little tiny bit different in the MG15C versus the real HP15C. One of them being the return key. My return key is byte 46, whereas in the real calculator it's byte 36. So I have the program editor will adjust and convert a 36 to a 46 for us. The other difference is the way that the decimal point is recorded or stored, and the program editor captures that as well. So the first step, clear the program. We started from a fresh state, so there was no program in there. And then F label A, so line 1 is 42, 21, 11. So to do that, we simply enter 42 tab 21 tab 11. And then what the program editor does is if it needs to, it'll convert these. So these are the HP15C keys. This is the MG15C key. It compiles the bytes together, and then this is the column that we're going to copy. Now, the program editor is in some pretty early stages, and what I would like to do eventually is put a macro in that will copy the cells required from the program. And I am going to lock this down. However, I did include the passwords. If you want to edit it or see how it works, you're more than welcome to. So let's finish entering the program. Okay, so we have line 1. So we need 2, and then 20, 9, 48 for the point, 8, divide. So I keep pressing the divide button, and I should be entering the byte code for the divide. So 10, and then 11 is the square root. And then our G return is 4332. So 4332. Now, we are going to copy from cell I2 all the way down to the end. So we'll copy that. Now I need to save a fresh JSON file. Before I do that, I want to clear the state. So I'm going to refresh the calculator so we start from an initial cleared state. I'm going to hit Save JSON. So that goes into our download folder. I am in Visual Studio Code. However, you could edit this file in any text editor. So I'm going to open the file. Here you see the real stack, X, Y, Z, and T, the imaginary stack, and their values. You can change those values here, and they will be loaded into the calculator. You've got last X. You also have a last imaginary X. This is slightly different than the real HP15C. Then you have all of the flags, the 10 flags, and you can change their value to true here if you would like to set the flag. There's also the 66 memory registers available to change their values. The M is where matrices are stored. Then we have some of the calculator mode data. And then this is where the program goes. From the Excel file, we will click Add Program and go all the way to the bottom. Here you see some additional program information. We capture that from the Excel file for the program editor. So we will simply paste here, work our way back up to the top, and you see how all of the lines of the byte information are stored in one line. If we save a JSON file from the calculator that has a program in it, some of this information is going to be on its own line. It is okay to create the file this way with all of those bytes on one line. I will press Ctrl S to save, and then we will switch back to the calculator. Load a JSON file, grab the state, go into program mode. You see we ended on the last line, which was the return line. So if we single step through here, we see that we're at program label A. I'm going to get out of program mode, and we will run 300.51 FA. Let's change that back to 4 fixed decimal places. And we get 7.8313, which is the amount of time in seconds it takes for the object to fall from the height that we provided. Now, just for a quick example, I'm going to save this JSON file so we can see what that looks like. So we've got state 2. So if I come over here, open the file, and open state 2, scroll down to the program area, this is what I meant when the bytes get stored on their own individual line of code. It doesn't matter that our program editor compiles that onto one line. let's say we want to change this to program label E. We have the E key here, that's row 1, column 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, so that's key 15. We will save that, and then we'll load state 2 back into the calculator. We'll go into program mode, and we see that the label has changed to label E. Get out of program mode, enter 300.51, and then we'll run program E. And there is our result, 7.8313. As for the program editor, I am going to try to make some improvements to it. I want to get a clear button that will clear the bytes of data that we entered, or the keys. And then I want to create another button that will copy, so it will grab the appropriate cells from I2 down to the bottom of the column, where that will copy automatically without having to select those manually. I do plan to lock this down. However, I'm going to provide that password, so if you want to see how it works or unlock it and make tweaks and changes, you can do that. And there's some other thoughts that maybe I'll include another sheet or so, so that you could manually configure the memory registers or the flags or the stack, and possibly even matrices if I get to that point. So if you made it this far, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. I do this just for a hobby, for fun. So I would appreciate a like and possibly even a subscribe as I continue to build the MG15C Emulator video series out. And you can visit my GitHub and find the calculator in the links provided below. So with that, thanks for watching.